The aliens laughed when Earth sent a woman to fight their undefeated champion, until the arena fell silent with one punch. Before we dive in, hit subscribe so you never miss these shocking HFY tales. And tell us in the comments what you would have done in her place. Now, let's begin.
The moment Earth announced its representative, the galaxy erupted in laughter. Billions watched the broadcast as a single human woman, calm, unarmed, and impossibly composed, stepped forward to face a species that prided itself on breaking planets with brute force. The Varkan champion roared his challenge, confident he'd crush her in seconds. But Rhea Morgan didn't flinch. She didn't blink. And as the arena's lights dimmed and her heartbeat steadied, every species watching felt something they couldn't explain, an instinctive chill that whispered they had just made the worst mistake of their lives. Rhea didn't care about their mockery. Let them laugh. Let them jeer. Let them place their bets on her death. She had heard worse from humans in her own early days. She knew what it meant to walk into a room and be instantly dismissed, measured wrong, counted out before the first strike. And now, standing before a galaxy that believed a woman like her had no place in a warrior's arena, she felt something unexpected relief. At least out here, the sexism was honest. Brutal. Unfiltered. The Varkun didn't pretend to respect her. They didn't pretend to see her as equal. Their champion, Gorik, pointed a claw at her and called her a soft-skinned herbivore. Their council spat on the ground when she walked by. Their soldiers joked about what part of her body would break first. It was almost refreshing. She didn't respond to any of it. She simply followed the escort drones to the combat platform, boots echoing on metal. Every step was deliberate, grounding her in the moment. The air tasted like static. The Colosseum's retractable roof opened to a blood-red sky, revealing the pulse of distant stars and thousands of hovering spectator ships. Her visor flickered with notifications, live audience count skyrocketing, betting pools overflowing, death projections scrolling like stock tickers. 98% predicted she would die in under 20 seconds. That figure made even neutral species lean forward with morbid curiosity. Rhea kept walking. Her pulse stayed steady. No fear. No adrenaline spike. Just quiet purpose. What the galaxy couldn't understand, was that humans didn't get stronger because they were feared. They got stronger because they were doubted. Gorik, meanwhile, performed his usual intimidation ritual. He pounded his chest, producing thunderous echoes that rattled the stadium. The Varkun crowd shrieked with bloodlust, stomping the ground until dust clouds swirled around their towering forms. Gorik flexed his forearms, each thick as a human's torso, armor plates shifting like serrated mountains. His jaw tusks gleamed under the arena lights. He was a natural-born killer, engineered by evolution to dominate, conquer, enslave. And that was the problem. Creatures like him won by fear. Creatures like Rhea won by discipline. As she reached the center of the Colosseum, holographic translators kicked on, projecting her voice through the arena. "Captain Rhea Morgan of Earth," the announcer boomed, barely disguising his disbelief. "Combat specialty, adaptive close quarters. Predicted mortality rate, extremely high." The Varkan Council laughed so loudly that even distant ships' mics caught it. Rhea didn't acknowledge them. Her eyes were fixed solely on the champion. She studied his stance, the weight distribution in his limbs, the slight drag in his left foot, the microsecond delay when he inhaled through the cracked plating on his right shoulder. Weaknesses. Openings. Data points. Gorik misread her silence as fear. "You are fragile," he said through his translator. "Your bones will crack before my warm-up ends." Rhea tilted her head slightly. "You talk too much." Somewhere in the stands, thousands of alien spectators murmured in confusion. Was she naive? Delusional? Putting on a brave show before death? Or worse, did she actually believe she stood a chance? What none of them realized was that Rhea had been trained not for showmanship, but survivability. Earth's military academies, forged from centuries of wars and brutality, did not create warriors to look impressive. They created them to win or die trying. Rhea's training involved crushing gravitational fields, impact-resistant tendon strengthening, bone density augmentation through regimented pain conditioning, and meditation techniques that could slow her heartbeat to a near-still rhythm. She understood the human body better than most surgeons and treated every muscle like a weapon. Standing here, surrounded by alien predators, she felt oddly at home. The arena lights dimmed. The ground vibrated as energy fields activated, locking both combatants inside the shimmering dome. Announcer drones zipped overhead, capturing every movement for the galactic broadcast. A hush descended, not respect but anticipation. They were waiting for the moment Rhea would scream. The moment bones snapped. The moment blood spilled. Violence was not a possibility. To them, it was inevitable. A soft chime echoed. The pre-fight diagnostics scanned both combatants. The results appeared on the leaderboard. Gorak the Mauler, species, Varkun, strength index, 9.7, victory streak, 87. Rhea Morgan, species, human, strength index, unknown, victory streak, classified. That last word, classified, caused confusion in the audience. Aliens despised unknown variables. They preferred measurable, predictable outcomes. The Varkun Council scoffed, assuming it was a human attempt to save face. Rhea's lips twitched in a subtle smirk. If only they knew. The crowd erupted with renewed laughter when she removed her helmet. Golden brown hair tied back. Sharp, focused eyes. A face that looked too human, too soft, too deceptively ordinary. The Varkun found it hilarious, sending a decorative female into a war arena. Messages flashed across the galactic stream. Earth has no warriors left. Is this a political joke? She will die on the first hit. Rhea ignored all of it. She stopped at the precise center point, feet planted firmly. Her breathing slowed. Her muscles loosened. Her mind cleared until only one thought remained. Take the shot when it comes. Gorak slammed his fists together, releasing a shockwave that cracked the platform floor. I will enjoy this, he growled. Probably not, Rhea murmured. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. On the 8th second, Gorak leaned forward, coiling like a massive predator preparing to pounce. 7, 6. The crowd roared, convinced she would run. 5, 4. She didn't move. 3, 2. The Varkun began chanting his name in deafening unison, drowning out everything. 1. Rhea closed her fists. The arena fell into absolute silence, a silence so sharp it felt like inhaling ice. This was the moment the galaxy wanted the most, the beginning of her supposed annihilation. Billions leaned toward their screens. The Varkun rose from their seats, gleeful. But Rhea wasn't thinking about them. She was thinking about the first time a superior officer had told her she didn't belong. The first time a fellow soldier mocked her strength. The first time she vowed she would never let anyone decide her limits again. 0. And in that heartbeat before the fight truly began, before the galaxy witnessed something it would talk about for centuries, Rhea lifted her gaze, staring directly at Gorak, and whispered with unwavering certainty. You're about to learn what a human woman can do. The energy inside the Colosseum thickened until it felt like liquid pressure on every spectator's chest. Billions of viewers across the galaxy leaned in, breath held, waiting for the inevitable violence. But Rhea Morgan didn't move. She simply watched Gorak with an expression so calm it bordered on insulting. His 4 massive legs sank into the dust-covered platform, each footstep cracking the ground. He wanted to intimidate her, to crush her mind before crushing her body. The crowd chanted his name louder, stomping and pounding their fists on the railing until the arena trembled. They expected Rhea to recoil, to show even the faintest tremor of weakness. Instead, she rolled her shoulders once and loosened her joints. That tiny motion sparked a wave of commentary across the galactic broadcast. The translation drones picked up her biomechanical signature, heart rate at resting level, oxygen intake stable, micromuscular tremors non-existent. Several alien analysts immediately flagged the data as suspicious. How could a human facing imminent death be so composed? The Varkun Council dismissed it as equipment malfunction. The neutral diplomats observed silently and worried. They had seen humans fight before. They knew something was wrong, dangerously wrong, but couldn't pinpoint it. Rhea wasn't thinking about any of them. She was studying Gorak in ruthless detail, absorbing every piece of information like a targeting computer. His armor plating was reinforced at the chest and shoulders, but the joints between plates remained vulnerable. The outer forearms were coated in hardened exokeratin, capable of shattering steel, but the underside was softer, biologically so for mobility. His breathing was heavy, arrogant, undisciplined. He relied on brute strength, not technical precision. His stance favored overwhelming his opponent with forward momentum, sacrificing balance for intimidation. Everything he did was predictable. Rhea had fought fighters like him before. Bull chargers, thrill killers, ego-driven colossi who believed that mass equaled mastery. She had watched them rise in the rankings, only to shatter against someone who didn't play by their expectations. Gorak was the strongest version of a familiar pattern, not a puzzle, but a magnified example of the same weaknesses she'd studied for years. What made humans, especially trained female soldiers, so effective was not brawn, but adaptability. Humans evolved to survive predators far stronger than themselves. Their biology responded to threat with creative problem-solving rather than panic. And women, particularly those conditioned for elite service, developed sharper neuromuscular response patterns. Their bodies processed danger differently, efficiently, strategically. Rhea was the culmination of all of that. She let her mind drift briefly to the gravity chambers back on Earth. The drills where she practiced micro-movements under crushing atmospheric pressure. The sessions where shock pulses tested her reflexes, demanding she block or redirect them within milliseconds. The recovery cycles where micro-tears in muscle were repaired through accelerated adaptation. Every part of her training was designed to make her stronger under stress, not despite it, but because of it. Opposite her, Gorak cracked his neck with an audible pop, exposing his serrated teeth in a derisive smirk. "Your silence bores me," he growled. "Scream now. Get it over with." She didn't answer. She didn't look away either. That quiet defiance struck the crowd like a slap. They wanted fear. They needed it for the ritual to feel satisfying. But this human woman, she gave them the opposite. She gave them anticipation. The announcer drones circled tighter, broadcasting every twitch, every inhale, every flicker of emotion. Alien spectators sent real-time commentary. Why isn't she terrified? Why does she keep watching his feet? Is she planning something? Humans are strange. A handful of older, battle-experienced species recognized the look in her eyes. It wasn't fear. It wasn't arrogance. It was calculation. Rhea's analysis continued. She shifted her weight so slightly that even high-speed drones barely detected it, testing the arena floor's friction, memorizing the slide of dust beneath her boots. She inhaled deeply to measure the air density. She wasn't fighting just Gorak. She was fighting the environment, the temperature, the gravity curvature inside the arena dome. Everything mattered. Her mind was a machine, processing hundreds of variables simultaneously. But she kept one truth anchored clearly. This wasn't about proving herself to the galaxy. It wasn't about humiliation or glory. It was about the principle that had fueled her since childhood. When others dismissed her strength, she let her actions speak with undeniable force. Gorak seemed to sense her assessment and roared louder, pounding his chest again. The shockwave hit Rhea's uniform, rippling the fabric, but she didn't flinch. Her stillness offended him more than any insult. "You think you can defeat me," he said, voice dripping disdain. "You are tiny, soft. Your bones will turn to dust under my fists." Rhea finally blinked, once slowly. "You assume I'm here to fight your way." Those words rippled through the Colosseum like an electric spark. Gorak snarled and took 2 massive steps closer, but Rhea still didn't move. She continued her internal assessment, tracing the rhythm of his breath. He inhaled on a 3 count, exhaled on a 2 count. His dominant hand was the upper right arm. His left side stance was weaker. His body leaned forward more than necessary, telegraphing his center of balance. Every muscle twitch told a story, and Rhea read them all. Her suit's inner sensors hummed softly, feeding her real-time data. She didn't need it, but it confirmed what she already knew. Gorak was enormous, powerful, and deadly, but his fighting style was archaic. Predictable. Aggression without adaptation. A hammer expecting everything to be a nail. Humans weren't nails. The countdown hovered at the edge of its final cycle, the arena lights dimming further. Holographic flames erupted along the walls, casting red reflections across Gorak's armor. Rhea's shadow stretched long and thin across the ground, but her posture remained upright, unshaken. The Varkan crowd crescendoed in anticipation, chanting in unison, voices merging like a monstrous heartbeat. G-U-R-R-A-K, G-U-R-R-A-K, G-U-R-R-A-K. He basked in it, lifting his arms triumphantly. He believed he had already won. He believed her fate was sealed. He believed the universe worked only one way: the strong crush the weak. But Rhea didn't operate under the universe he imagined. She operated under the universe humans created for themselves, one where the underestimated rise, the weak adapt, the mocked evolve, and the dismissed become legends. As the final warning chime echoed, the arena seemed to shrink around them. Dust hung in the air. Lights flickered. Breath caught in every spectator's throat. And in this tension-filled heartbeat, Rhea spoke for the first time since stepping onto the platform, her voice crisp and steady. "You've already lost," she said softly, not as a taunt but as a fact. Gorak roared in fury, too loudly, too emotionally, too predictably. Rhea smiled faintly. She had seen enough. She knew exactly how this would end. The next breath the galaxy took would be the last calm moment before history shattered. The instant the starting signal ripped through the arena, Gorak launched himself forward with terrifying speed. The ground split beneath his feet, dust exploding upward as his massive frame tore a crater into the platform. Billions watching gasped. Few species in the galaxy could move that fast with that much mass. His charge was a living avalanche, every footstep a thundercrack, every motion promising instant death. He came at Rhea like a collapsing star, all fury and unstoppable momentum. But to Rhea, everything slowed. Her breath steadied. Her vision sharpened. Training took over. She watched his approach, not with fear but with precision. She noted the slight outward flare of his dominant arm, the angle of his tusks when he roared, the microsecond lag between his upper and lower right arm as they prepared to strike. The Varkan champion was powerful, yes, but predictable. Overconfident. Sloppy. His first attack was meant to end it immediately. All four arms swung forward like meteors, forming a crushing wall of bone and armor. The crowd erupted, convinced she'd be pulverized. But Rhea wasn't there. She moved a split second before impact, pivoting on the ball of her foot with surgical grace. The air burned against her suit as the champion's blow tore past inches from her cheek, creating a shockwave that nearly toppled nearby, recording drones. She ducked under the follow-up strike, spun past the sweeping third arm, and let the fourth miss by an effortless margin. The crowd fell silent. No human should have been able to move like that, not under the arena's enhanced gravity field, not against a champion known for annihilating opponents in under 3 blows. Gorak expected her to dodge clumsily, if she dodged at all. Instead, she navigated his attacks with such calm precision that it rattled him instantly. He snarled, twisting violently to face her again. "Stand still and die." She didn't respond. Words were wasted now. He struck again, faster, harder, each hit powerful enough to crater a tank. Rhea slipped through his offense like water navigating boulders, never resisting, always redirecting. Her footwork was flawless, silent, calculated. She let his size work against him, forcing him to overextend, to miss, to grow angrier. And anger made warriors stupid. Gorak slammed his lower, right fist toward her head. She stepped inside the strike, her hand snapping up in a precise knife-edge motion that connected with the nerve cluster beneath his arm plate. The impact triggered a spasm, forcing his limb to seize for half a second. It wasn't much, but it was enough. The crowd roared in disbelief. Gorak stumbled, something that had never happened in his entire fighting career. Rhea could feel the tremor of confusion ripple from him, like heat. His mind couldn't understand what just happened. He had always been stronger. He had always been the predator. But she wasn't prey. She circled him slowly, her boots barely whispering against the cracked floor. Gorak roared and charged again, swiping and slashing in wide arcs. Dust exploded everywhere. Debris flew. Entire chunks of the platform shattered beneath his strikes. Rhea's breathing stayed steady. She stepped sideways from one hit, ducked beneath another, leaned just enough to let a tusk slash past her shoulder. Every movement she made was minimal, no wasted energy, no unnecessary panic. Her training had ingrained efficiency so deeply that she moved with the instinctive grace of a seasoned apex predator. And the galaxy noticed. Live comment feeds exploded. She's reading him like a book. Why isn't she attacking back? What kind of training do humans have? Even neutral diplomats leaned closer to their screens. Humans had been underestimated for centuries, their physicality laughed at by larger species. But this was different. Rhea wasn't just surviving. She was studying him in real time, turning the opening minutes into a tactical map. Gorak, humiliated and furious, unleashed a deafening roar that shook the arena's energy barrier. He stomped with all his weight, cracking the platform into fissures that raced straight toward her. The shockwaves surged like a rolling quake. Rhea bent her knees, let the vibration flow under her, then sprang upward in a spiral motion, landing light as breath on solid ground. Her boots touched down without a single scrape. Her posture remained upright, centered, controlled. That was the moment the Varkan realized something was wrong. Very wrong. Because Rhea Morgan wasn't straining. She wasn't panting. She wasn't sweating. She had taken no damage, absorbed no hits, lost no rhythm. If anything, she looked warmed up, settled, ready. Meanwhile, Gorik's breathing had grown shallow. His armor plates shifted awkwardly. Stress fractures appeared along his lower arms, where his wild swings hit nothing but reinforced floor. His roar lowered in pitch, a sign of rising fatigue. His massive frame wasn't built for prolonged combat. He relied on ending fights instantly. She was letting him exhaust himself. It dawned on him too late. "You coward," he bellowed. "Fight back." She tilted her head. "You haven't given me an opening worth using." That single sentence ignited a storm across the galaxy. Billions replayed the line instantly. It became an immortal phrase, clipped and saved, turned into memes, quoted in battle academies for generations. The woman facing a monster, calm enough to critique his technique. Rhea didn't deliver it with mockery. She delivered it with truth. Gorik lost what remained of his self-control. He abandoned stance and discipline, charging with pure rage, swinging wildly. Each blow missed by a hair, by a breath, by the edge of her quiet steps. Every miss drained him. Every dodge strengthened her resolve. And then, finally, it happened. Gorik overextended. His upper right arm swung too far. His weight shifted wrong. His talons dug into cracked ground, dragging him off balance. For a split second, he exposed the vulnerable opening she had been waiting for since the first heartbeat of the fight. Rhea didn't hesitate. Her foot slammed into the ground with a pivot that transferred kinetic force through every muscle chain in her body. She pushed off, accelerating faster than the cameras could track, and crossed the distance between them in a heartbeat. She moved inside Gorik's guard, closer than any sane fighter would dare. Her fists tightened, knuckles aligning, wrist locked. And she struck. One punch. A single, precise, devastating punch. It connected beneath his armor, right at the exposed biological weak point she had identified the moment she saw his stance. The sonic crack echoed like a cannon blast. Shockwaves rippled across his entire body. His armor dented inward. His breath hitched. His eyes widened in a primal terror he had never felt, not once, in his entire existence. He didn't roar. He didn't snarl. He just froze. The galaxy went silent. Rhea landed lightly, exhaled, and stepped back. Gorik didn't move. The Varkan champion, the undefeated warrior feared across star systems, stood trembling, staring down at the human woman who had just shattered everything he believed about dominance. And it was only the beginning. The Imperial throne room was silent when the sector lords arrived, their armor still sealed, their faces stiff with the realization that the galaxy's balance had just shifted forever. They had come expecting to discuss containment strategies, retaliation schedules, and how many cycles it would take to crush the humans who refused to bow. But standing in the center of the hall, lit by the cold glow of the ether lamps, was the Emperor himself, silent, unmoving, and staring at a holographic projection of space that pulsed with red warning symbols. Every single warning marked the same thing: human activity spreading at a rate no Imperial analyst had ever predicted. When the throne room doors closed behind the last commander, the Emperor finally spoke, his voice stripped of its usual cold confidence. He asked a question none of them had ever expected to hear. How did we underestimate them? And not one of the commanders dared to answer, because the real answer was painfully simple. They all had believed the humans were weak, because weakness was what they wanted to see. As the commanders struggled to present their fractured reports, the projections shifted to live footage captured by Imperial scouts. Entire human fleets moved in eerie, synchronized formations no AI had predicted, no model had simulated. Human warships were operating with a precision that made the Empire's famed armada look like an untrained militia. Even worse, faint signals intercepted from within those fleets suggested humans were deploying new weapons, ones not found in any databank. Each signal was a warning. The humans had anticipated war long before the Empire declared it. They had waited, building strength in silence, preparing for the day they would finally stand up not as petitioners begging for survival, but as a species ready to reshape the rules of the galaxy. The Emperor clenched his jaw as the commanders argued over which borders to reinforce first, over which worlds to evacuate, over who to blame for the disaster unfolding. Yet none of them understood the truth, that the Empire's fear was already decades too late. Light flickered again, and a new transmission appeared, intercepted from the fringe systems. This time it wasn't military footage. It was a message broadcast through every Imperial channel by a single human destroyer. The woman general stood at the center of the frame, armor dark, eyes steady, her voice carrying the calm of someone who knew exactly how this war would end. She didn't threaten, didn't roar, didn't brag. Instead, she spoke 11 quiet words that echoed across every star system in the Empire. You taught us fear. Now we will teach you consequences. And then the transmission cut to black before any Imperial countersignal could scramble it. Those 11 words spread faster than any fleet. On frontier worlds, civilians panicked and fled to shelters. On mining colonies, workers abandoned their stations. On military planets, even hardened officers hesitated. Fear had always been the Empire's greatest weapon. Now it belonged to the humans. Meanwhile, far from the Empire's panicked core, humanity moved with terrifying efficiency. Entire shipyards lit up at once as new dreadnoughts launched into orbit, their hulls forged from alloys reverse-engineered from Imperial wreckage. Troop carriers were loaded not with frightened recruits, but with volunteers, millions of them, answering the general's call with a level of unity that left alien analysts stunned. Ancient human divisions dissolved overnight, replaced by a single shared purpose. Humanity wasn't fighting for territory or resources or glory. They were fighting because they had been attacked first, hunted first, and underestimated first. And now they intended to make sure that no empire, present or future, would ever think of threatening Earth again. In deep strike war rooms, the general stood before her commanders and outlined the next phase of her campaign. Her strategy was impossibly simple, built on a principle she had learned from studying the Empire itself: crush the heart, and the limbs collapse. Instead of spreading their forces thin across countless border skirmishes, humanity would strike directly at the Empire's core production worlds. They would dismantle the infrastructure that fed the Imperial fleet. They would break the economic veins that kept the regime alive. But most importantly, they would target the systems that the Empire believed were untouchable, fortified planets shielded by centuries of arrogance. Her commanders at first hesitated, reminding her that these targets were considered suicidal to approach. She simply replied, "And that is why they will never expect us to reach them." No one questioned her again. For the first time in centuries, the Empire began losing control of the narrative. Independent systems withdrew their allegiance. Smuggler factions stopped paying Imperial tribute. Neutral worlds opened their ports to human envoys, offering something unheard of in the Empire: partnership instead of domination. Everywhere the Empire tried to stamp out rebellion, human operatives were already there, dismantling Imperial authority from within. Rumors spread of humans who could infiltrate any stronghold, who could outmaneuver any star marshal, who could inspire entire populations with nothing more than the promise that life under humanity would never resemble life under the Empire. The Emperor, watching from his throne, realized with dawning horror that the humans weren't merely retaliating. They were rewriting the galaxy's political order. But the real breaking point arrived when Imperial scouts discovered something no one had anticipated. The humans had built a forward command station inside the Empire's own territory, so deep within the Imperial border that analysts refused to believe the data at first. Yet the recordings were undeniable: a massive human fortress orbiting a burned-out star, impervious to every scan, shielded by technology no Imperial scientist had ever encountered. It was from here that the woman general broadcast her next message, one the Empire couldn't intercept or silence. Her hologram appeared in every Imperial military installation simultaneously. Not as a threat, not as a warning, as a promise. You hit Earth first. You forced our hand. Now understand this: we are not here to negotiate. We are here to end what you began. Panic spread through the highest ranks of the Empire. The sector lords argued for immediate surrender. The Warhawks demanded an assassination strike. The Emperor demanded time, but time was the one resource he no longer possessed. Human fleets were already mobilizing, and unlike the Empire, which relied on rigid hierarchies that slowed every command, humanity adapted faster than any other species in the galaxy. Their tactics shifted mid-battle. Their commanders made decisions autonomously. Their soldiers fought with an intensity born not from fear of punishment, but from loyalty to their own. That single difference changed everything. The Empire couldn't understand it, couldn't predict it, couldn't counter it. By the time the general initiated Phase 4 of her campaign, the Empire realized, too late, that the humans weren't simply marching toward victory. They were burning the very concept of Imperial dominance out of the galaxy. And as she watched her fleet stretch across the star maps like storm fronts, the general knew the truth that the Empire had never learned. When humanity fights as one, no empire, no armada, no throne can survive their advance. The screams of the Imperial Council echoed through the chamber as news from the front collapsed their final illusions of control. For more defense rings had fallen in less than a single cycle, each one fortified with enough firepower to stop an entire armada, yet the humans tore through them as if they were nothing more than ceremonial shields. The counselors argued, blamed, denied, but none of their noise could drown out the simple truth spreading through the Empire like a virus. The humans were not slowing down. They were accelerating. Every model, every prediction, every celebrated Imperial algorithm failed to calculate their momentum. It was as if the humans had unlocked a level of coordination no civilization in the Empire's long history had ever reached. And the Council finally understood something they had refused to see. This was no longer a conflict of fleets. It was a conflict of will. And humanity's will had become something terrifying. Across the stars, the woman general stood at the heart of her war room aboard the flagship Resolute Dawn, surrounded by streams of real-time intelligence. Her officers delivered updates with precision born from unity, not fear. They informed her that the Empire's eastern corridor had collapsed under the weight of human strikes, that conscript forces were surrendering en masse, that entire regiments of alien species had abandoned Imperial orders to join humanity's cause. For generations, the Empire had ruled through oppression, starving worlds into obedience and shattering any planet that dared dream of autonomy. Humanity offered something radically different: dignity, prosperity, a voice. And the oppressed responded with a passion that even the general hadn't fully anticipated. Every world liberated wasn't just one less enemy. It became a forward operating ally, supplying resources, intelligence, soldiers who had waited centuries to rise against the Empire's suffocating rule. But among the victories came whispers of something darker: imperial desperation. Intercepted communications suggested the Empire was preparing to unleash weapons outlawed even by their own corrupted Senate. Planet crackers, sun destabilizers, biological plagues designed to target genetic signatures, with humanity as the primary kill target. The general listened to the recordings without flinching. She had always known the Empire would resort to genocide the moment they realized they couldn't win through conventional means. It was the only language tyrants understood: fear through annihilation. But humans had faced extinction before. They had survived meteor impacts, super plagues, world wars, collapses, dark ages, self-destruction, near-extinction events of their own making. And every time, they rebuilt stronger than the era before. The general viewed the imperial threat not with panic, but with the cold resolve of a species hardened by millennia of surviving itself. Her response was immediate. She ordered a full-scale neutralization campaign targeting every known Imperial research station capable of deploying forbidden weaponry. Her strike teams were legends already: operatives who had infiltrated fortress labs, stolen enemy data, dismantled reactors, and vanished before Imperial sensors even recognized the breach. Now they were unleashed with purpose. Within 2 cycles, 9 black site facilities were silent. 3 more detonated from the inside, sabotaged by their own scientists who defected after witnessing humanity's treatment of conquered worlds. That defection sent a ripple of fear through the Empire's remaining leadership. If even their most loyal geniuses were switching sides, what hope remained? The Emperor, still brooding in his throne room, demanded retaliatory action. He ordered the construction of a last-stand battle group, the largest formation of warships ever assembled under Imperial command. It was meant to be a symbol, a final demonstration of the Empire's might. Yet behind the walls of propaganda, every officer knew the truth: they were preparing for a battle they could not win. Still, the Emperor's pride forged their shackles. He refused negotiation, refused surrender, refused to acknowledge that a species he once dismissed as primitive now controlled more space than the Empire had lost in any war in its history. He commanded his admirals to intercept the human fleet approaching the Meridian sector, believing this decisive confrontation would break their momentum. But the general was already 3 steps ahead. She knew the Empire would try to force a final stand. She also knew they expected humanity to respond with brute force. Instead, she exploited the Empire's greatest weakness: their rigidity. Imperial fleets operated on predictable patterns. Their formations were ancient traditions coded into doctrine treated as sacred, never questioned, never altered. The general calculated where the Empire would position their battle group before it even launched. And she executed a maneuver no Imperial strategist dared to consider. She split her armada into microfleets, each operating independently, yet synchronized through quantum-linked communication. These microfleets attacked from angles that Imperial formations could not adjust to, carving through their lines before the battle group could complete a single coordinated counterformation. The Empire expected a head-on assault. Instead, they faced a swarm of perfectly synchronized human strike forces cutting through their flagship escorts as if slicing through soft metal. Imperial officers tried to adapt, but every attempt was met with a human counter they could never predict. Human ships executed maneuvers that violated the Empire's centuries-old assumptions about inertia, vector shifts, and engagement distances. The Empire realized too late that humans had been hiding advancements for decades: plasma compression, gravitational redirection, microfold jumping. They had developed technologies that no alien species believed humans were smart or disciplined enough to create. But the greatest shock wasn't the technology. It was the humans themselves. Imperial captains screamed in disbelief as human pilots deliberately risked maneuvers no rational being would attempt, turning their ships at angles that shredded hull plating, diving through firestorms of plasma, sacrificing entire cruisers to protect civilian transports. Humans fought like a species that valued every life except their own, a paradox the Empire couldn't comprehend. And in that paradox, humanity found its greatest advantage. When the battle ended, the Empire's last-stand battle group was nothing more than drifting wreckage. Thousands of escape pods floated among the ruins, their occupants in shock, awaiting rescue. The general ordered her ships to retrieve every single survivor, Imperial or Allied, and treat them with the same dignity offered to humans. Imperial officers wept when they were given food, water, and medical care instead of interrogation or execution. Some broke down entirely, unable to reconcile the kindness of the species they had been taught to hate. And when those officers were given the chance to contact their families, they didn't call them with tales of terror, they called them with the truth. The humans don't want to rule us, they said. The humans want to free us. And as the general stood aboard her flagship, gazing at the star maps filled with liberated worlds, she knew the final phase of the war would soon begin. The Empire had struck Earth believing humans would bow. Instead, they awakened a species that refused to kneel ever again.